what is growing in the forest garden and around that's tasty at the moment. I'll divide it into two categories. The things that there are to forage, that were either here already in the hedgerows or in the grasslands, or that I've introduced. But these foragey things can be foraged anywhere in England, in the woodlands and fields and hedges. The first one being dandelions. Most people consider them a weed, but that view is beginning to change. I say change, I mean change back, because they were always considered a food source before the last century or so. I needn't say very much about them, because all parts are edible, just used in different ways. Well, except the seed heads, the puffy clocks. You can't eat those. Well, you could, but they're not very nice. They're quite bitter, so that puts people off, although they're really, really good for you. I've never tried this, but if you want to make them less bitter, you can put a pot or something over them and force the leaves like you would with rhubarb, and that makes them almost sweet and tender. Dandelion leaf sandwich is always on the menu. It also makes salads a lot more diverse and interesting with those bitter flavours. There is Good King Henry, just starting to push through. You can find it on most woodland floors in Europe, and it tastes a lot like spinach, but then lots of things do in the plant world, unless you cook it in some delicious fat or spice it up with some spices. The good old bread and cheese tree. Hawthorn tips. Abundant at the moment. Nice little tasty snacks, and you can make a meal from them if you collect enough of them. There are some hops beginning to grow out there, if you can find them. Just the tips. Taking them off at this time of year and steaming them. They call them poor man's asparagus in Somerset. They taste a bit like asparagus, not quite as good, but they're abundant and they're free, and it won't impede the growing, so you can just let the vines grow up, and then you can collect the citrusy flowers later in the year for either making beer or creating a lemony flavour in stir fries, or whatever you like. Nettle tips, of course. Abundant, nutritious, even more so than kale actually. Very protein packed and vitamin laden. There's lots of information out there on nettle tips, so I needn't say more, although I did make a video about this time last year. I made some nettle soup, so yeah, go and find that, see what you think. The ducks are beginning to gather now. It's their time to be herded away. They're like clockwork, those ducks. Not in the sense, I mean, they do sometimes waddle along like little clockwork toys, but I mean, they're punctual. Punctual birds. Sea beet, usually found along the coast, but it does grow inland as well. And I introduced it into the garden here a couple of years ago, and it's doing very well. It doesn't taste quite as salty as it does near the sea, but you can add salt to it. It's pretty good. I did have some sea kale, but it doesn't seem to like it here very much. Watercress. As many of you longer time viewers will know, I love watercress, especially eating it loudly in front of the camera. Cham cham cham. There is wild watercress around here, although I have introduced some that I bought in a supermarket, and it's absolutely flourishing. And again, I made a video. It's quite popular actually. It's called Grow Your Own Watercress. It's very, very easy to grow your own, but I will save that for the other video if you'd like to watch it. Ramsons, wild garlic, whatever you care to call it. It is abundant and delicious, and this really is the best time of year to pick the leaves. It can be used as a major food source in times of famine, but if you've got other things to eat, then it's better just to leave it as a medicine or a flavouring. It is far more abundant in April going through to May, but now in March I find it's the best time to pick it because the leaves aren't yet bitter and you can just eat them as they are. You don't even need to cook them. Bittercress or pennycress or landcress. It has many different names. You can't get rid of it. Anytime you cultivate or till the soil, it seems to pop up, and it has exploding little seed heads that you can actually see go, and they go everywhere. Loads of people don't like them. I don't know why, because the roots aren't very deep. They don't interfere with anything else. They make a wonderful ground cover, and they're so mineral and vitamin rich They contain vitamin A, vitamin K. No, I don't know what they... But I love it. I just pull it up, chop the root off and put it in a sandwich. It's wonderful stuff. The geese think so too, and when they were a little bit more on the loose, the pennycrest population took a hit, as did the dandelions. They used to be everywhere, but the geese like them so much that now it's really difficult to find one. But if I don't pick the tasty flower heads and let them go to seed and spread, then the population ought to regenerate over the coming years. Birch sap. There's a lot to be said about birch sap. I have some birch trees to the north of the garden here as a northerly windbreak and habitat trees. Plus when the wind blows, their spindly twigs that come down make brilliant kindling. I've never tried collecting the sap, but I really would like to. The trees are just the right diameter now, and it's a very popular thing on the continent in Europe. Well, in this country too actually, but I've never seen anyone do it. I'd really like to. Maybe this is the year. Well, those are all the foragey things in the garden that are best at the moment. There are quite a few others, but I'm trying to keep this video brief, which it probably isn't. But the introduced vegetables or things that you might find in the kitchen garden are the perennial leeks. In fact, there are still a few annual leeks left from last year, but the perennial leeks are prolific and they're doing wonderfully, and they're very similar to the annual leeks, but they've got a bit of a garlicky flavour and they're a bit thinner, but they are just going mad, so they're very much on the menu. Kale in both its forms, either the Dorbenton's kale, the Taunton kale, or the tree collard type kale, that again I made a video about, called the perfect plant for the lazy allotmenteer. And it really is. It grows everywhere and I love it. Soups, stews, curries, crisps. Really nice kale crisps. Rub them in oil and salt and pepper. Put them in the oven for 20 minutes. Crunch, crunch, crunch. There are still quite a few shallots left. Yeah, little onions. Well, they're from the multiplier onion family. And I ought to have harvested them all last autumn. But I left a few on the ground accidentally and they've come back up again, and yeah, good backup supply actually. So shallots, that's shallot. That's not shallot because rhubarb. It's not at its best yet, but it certainly is edible. I ought to wait for the stems to get a little bit bigger really, and if I were to have forced any of it, then it would be absolutely perfect now. But yeah, rhubarb this month. I still have quite a few ocker left that I harvested in the autumn. Nice sweet lemony crunchy ocker. And a few potatoes as well. Again, I made a video about the no-dig method of growing potatoes and I had great success. So much so, that I've still got some left. In terms of flavouring or spices or other medicinal plants, bay is just never-ending, bay leaves. Mint, well, it's unstoppable. Sage, that's doing very well. Rosemary, huge, great big rosemary bushes everywhere. And in terms of eggs, duck eggs every day. I've got a bit tired of them really, but they are everywhere, and that's the one thing I do sell. I sell a few to local shops and give them away as presents. And chicken eggs. They're only little tiny bantam eggs, but they lay every day. And those are the things that are on the menu in the forest garden in March. It's still too windy to record anything outside, but I will bid you all a good day now. Really good to see you all again. Thank you for watching, and see you very soon with another video. Quite soon. Need to go and put the ducks away before the foxes come out. Bye. I forgot Mahonia, didn't I? They're a sweet well, not sweet exactly, but they're a delicious, well, there are Mahonia berries growing on the Mahonia bush, and they're a really welcome snack for breakfast or any other time of day at this time of year, because there are no other berries growing. So yeah, add those to the list. May the sun shine on you all. that sounds a bit twee. A beautiful springtime to you all. May the sun shine a little more. Yeah, that'll do. It's silliness o'clock, but then, when isn't it here? Bye.